So this is week 103 of our weekly discussions. And we are asking today, is morality the only thing that matters? Is morality the only thing that matters? So what is EA, or effective altruism? First, it's an idea. Maximize the good that you can do through your career, your projects, and your donations. It's also a community or a movement of many individuals and organizations who care about this idea and who are gathered around it. So today, our theme is morality, and whether also as Christians, morality is the only thing that matters. And I want to approach this through the lens of the work of a philosopher named Susan Wolf, and she published, I think, back around 40 years ago, a paper called Moral Saints. And instead of just summarizing the paper for you right now, I'd rather share a video that shares this paper. And might make a mistake here because I haven't shared a video over Zoom before. If not, I'll just have to summarize it. But let me pull it up for you all. Okay, and I want to make sure that the sound comes through. Somebody say something, please, if the sound does not come through, or if it's really low quality.
Yeah, I heard things.
Is it coming through, Johan?
I heard a little bit, but now it's quiet again. No sounds. No.
Is that good enough, Johan?
No, we don't have sounds.
You don't have sounds. Okay.
We don't have.
Okay,
No
so
sound.
what I will do is go here. I'll do like a fast forward version since this will help the explanation. So the thinking is,
you could also put on subtitles, JD.
Yeah.
I could also do subtitles. Okay, great. So the thinking is that we all aspire to be moral saints. We all have this pillar of goodness that we're all trying to live up to, and we can think of this from a Christian perspective as well. There's a certain type of life we're trying to pursue as a saint. And Susan Wolf, she defines two kinds of saints. You have on the left hand this kind of loving saint, and on the right hand you have this kind of more rational saint. Both are trying to do the most good, but in different ways. The loving saint is, their happiness is intertwined with the happiness of others, and so she believes she behaves morally because she thinks that doing good feels good. Meanwhile, the rational saint on the right does good because he knows that it's the right thing to do. And so the question becomes, well, are either of these perfect saints? Because they both seem to have some flaws in them. So we can take the example of the loving saint. This person is always extremely empathetic and is always kind to people in front of them, but maybe falls short when trying to help the most people possible because they're always so concerned about the person in front of them. They miss out on like greater opportunities to do more good to more people. And then similarly, the more rational saint makes the mistake of being too rational, being even potentially cold or callous to other people. But she goes further to describe how moral saints are so interested in morality that they have to give up certain aspects of being human that a lot of us think are really important for being a good person, even a saintly person. Things like being funny, for instance, being comedic. This is something that we really respect and want to emulate from other people. But comedy itself is something where we oftentimes make jokes at other people's expense, or we assume that somebody understands part of some inside joke or some part of some humor. And so we can't always please everybody through our comedy, even if we can please many people. And so the saint might end up being dull and humorless. They might also end up not focusing on other sorts of passions like sports or like literature or beauty or acting, because they're so concerned with living correctly and living morally. They end up living a really dull life. And so Susan says this kind of life doesn't seem like it's true living. I'm reminded, for instance, of a passage from Strangers Drowning, where the author describes these kinds of saints. And one person she describes is Julia Wise, who is someone in the effective altruism community who takes this idea of effective giving very seriously. And at one point in time had a very difficult choice between buying a caramel apple for about $4 or $5 and donating that money to the poor, and was driven to emotional turmoil in the moment because of this hard decision. And this is the kind of decision that perhaps Susan Wolf would say is overkill for a saint, and is not an aspect of the best kind of person we would want to be. So Susan would say that, well, it might just be true that the most important thing in life, maybe morality is one of those most important things, but morality is not the only important thing in life. And when we see people who are described as saints, these are people who live really well-rounded lives, really holistic lives, care about many other things, but in addition to that, live very virtuous lives. So in summary, she doesn't argue that we shouldn't try to be morally good. Instead, she argues that the popular notion of this pinnacle of moral goodness is impossible to achieve. We should help others, but if we don't care for ourselves, we'll never be able to do so. So that is just in a nutshell, maybe Susan Wolf's description of a moral saint. And then the question becomes, well, is this, how much of this is true? What can we learn from Susan Wolf's example? And how much can we criticize it, or what aspects of it can we criticize? I want to just read an excerpt from a book from Dustin Crummett and Liz Jackson, who are both associated with our Facebook community. This is a practical ethics book where they analyze the Peter Singer drowning child experiment next to some of Susan Wolf's arguments. And just to recap, the drowning child experiment goes: you're walking by a pond and you see a child drowning, and you could jump in and save the child at some expense to yourself, but not extreme expense. Should you do it? And Peter Singer says, yes, you should do this. In fact, you should do this up until the point where you yourself would give up something that's of equal or greater value than the life that the child would lose otherwise. So to this, maybe Susan Wolf would say, well, yes, it's a good thing to save the drowning child, but at some point, you shouldn't only give up everything you have to save drowning children. You should also appreciate life, and a life worth living isn't just a life where you give up all of your possessions to help the poor. Maybe that's one thing that you do. You give up much of what you have, but you also appreciate nice sunsets. But then a criticism here might be, well, is there ever a point where we can appreciate sunsets in a world where there are children drowning in a pond? Is it ever the case that there would be something more important than morality? And these are also very interesting ideas from a Christian perspective, right? This idea of a morality or of laws that are so demanding that we can never fulfill them. These ideas of morality being all-encompassing. Does this smack of legalism? Does this smack of a kind of law that contradicts the Christian message of grace? How can we think about this as Christians? And what are some some things you guys want to discuss about that? I'd love to jump into that with no specific direction, but perhaps we can go to breakout rooms and discuss that further now.